and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
So today I'll be giving my predictions for the Big Ten and SEC championship games. So starting with the Big Ten championship, Ohio State and Indiana are both elite offenses, and they both have the top two defenses in the country going by points allowed per game. And to compare quarterbacks in this game, it's a pretty similar quarterback comparison. Both quarterbacks are likely going to be Heisman finalists. And I actually think whichever quarterback plays the best in this game will win the Heisman Trophy. Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin are the only two quarterbacks in the country that have 30 plus passing touchdowns and five or less interceptions. And Julian Sayin didn't play very well against Texas. So the Michigan game was really the first chance for him to actually prove that he's deserving of being a Heisman finalist because in between Texas and Michigan, Ohio State hadn't really played any good defenses. But Sayin proved in the Michigan game that he deserves to be a Heisman finalist. Other than that interception that he threw at the beginning of the game, he played great, completing 73.1% of his passes for 233 and three touchdown passes. But Julian Sayin is the more accurate quarterback of the two. Is at 78.9% completion percentage. You can't get much better than that. But accuracy is not a problem at all for Fernando Mendoza either. He's completed 72% of his passes. And Sayan has 3,065 yards passing, and Mendoza has 2,758 yards passing. And they're both tied in yards per throw at 9.4. And while the yard numbers for both are good, something to remember is neither one of them has had to play very much in the fourth quarter, or their numbers would be quite a bit higher. But even though Indiana, like Ohio State, has played a weak schedule, Mendoza proved against Oregon, who has an elite defense, and along with Ohio State, has what appears to be the best secondary in the country, that he deserves to be a Heisman candidate. In that game, he threw for 215 and a touchdown and completed at 64.5% of his throws. Indiana had more success offensively against Oregon than anyone has. But as a passer, I would take Julian Sayin by a little bit over Fernando Mendoza. But unlike Sayin, who's completely a pocket passer, Mendoza does have some dual threat ability to him. Now, he's not near as much of a dual threat as like Haynes King at Georgia Tech, who can win a game with his legs. But Mendoza does have enough dual threat ability to where Ohio State will have to prepare for it. He's ran 64 times this season for 243 and six touchdowns, averaging 3.8 a carry. And at wide receiver, Ohio State does have the advantage, but it is close. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate do both appear to be healthy now. They each caught a touchdown against Michigan. Tate had five catches for 82 yards, and Smith had three catches for 41 yards. But Jeremiah Smith is the best wide receiver in the country. But Indiana's best wide receiver, Elijah Surratt, has missed 3 games this season before returning against Purdue. But in the 9 games he's played in, he's caught 48 passes for 650 and 11 touchdowns. And Omar Cooper, he's caught 58 passes for 804 and 11 touchdowns. But Ohio State does have the tight end advantage because Max Clare, the tight end that they brought in from Purdue, has been a big upgrade for them at tight end. He's caught 41 passes for 420 and 2 touchdowns. He's helped make up for them no longer having Emeka Egbuka. And then at running back, Bo Jackson is one of the best running backs in the country. The Ohio State starting running back. He had a great game against Michigan, uh, having 117 yards on 22 carries. And he's a four-star freshman running back. And the transfer running back that Indiana brought in from Maryland, Roman Henby, has been a big hit for them. He's their best running back with 866 yards and 6 touchdowns, averaging 5.3 a carry. But both teams have got a lot of depth at running back. They've each got several running backs that could start and play fine. And then on the offensive line, Ohio State has played better this year than they did last year in the regular season. They've played this year like they did in the playoffs last year. But Indiana has also got one of the best offensive lines in the country. Ohio State's is better in pass protection. They've only allowed 6 sacks all season, but Indiana's has been better in run blocking. They're averaging 5.6 yards per run, and they rank ninth in the country in rushing, averaging 229.8 yards rushing per game. Even though Indiana's offense is best known for the quarterback, they're actually more of a running team. Having good pass protection is going to be very important for both of these teams in this game because these are two of the best teams in the country at getting after the quarterback. Each defensive line has an elite pass rusher to watch. For Ohio State, it's Caden Curdy. He's got 9 sacks and he's also a good tackler with 53 tackles. And for Indiana, it's Mikel Kamara. His sack numbers aren't near as good as they were last year. Only 1 sack, and he doesn't have near as many tackles as he had last year. Only 25 tackles, but he's still got 46 total quarterback pressures. And then each team has a great linebacker combination. Indiana linebacker Elijah Hardy is probably their best defensive player. He's their top tackler with 77 tackles, and also their best pass rusher with 7 sacks and 56 total quarterback pressures. And Indiana linebacker Aiden Fisher is also one of the best in the country. He was their top tackler last year. He's been dealing with an injury that caused him to miss a whole game and most of another, but he still has 70 tackles and a couple of sacks and a couple of interceptions, and he seems to be healthy now. And then Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles. He's not a great pass rusher, but he's an elite run stopper. And Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese is an elite pass rusher. He's got 6.5 sacks. Indiana has been as good against the run as Ohio State has, but they're not near as good against the pass. They've been giving up over 50 more yards passing per game than Ohio State has, although they're only giving up 172.5 yards passing per game, which is still really good. And they've got a safety and cornerback combination that's close to as good as Ohio State's Caleb Downs and Davison Igbenos. And Caleb Downs, though, is the best safety in college football. He's got 52 tackles and a couple of interceptions. And Igbenogson has 38 tackles and broke up 6 passes. And he's been doing a lot better this year about not getting pass interference penalties. But Indiana's got Lewis Moore at safety and D'Angelo Pines at cornerback. Moore has 70 tackles and has got 5 interceptions, and Pines has 37 tackles and has broke up 6 passes and also has a pick six. But Ryan Day is at least the second best coach in college football right now. And if Ohio State wins the national championship again, I'm going to list him as the best coach. But Kirk Cignati is easily in the top 10 right now. Cignati has had to lean heavily on the portal. But while Ryan Day, he's not like Dabo Sweeney at Clemson, who refuses to use the transfer portal. He's using it less than most coaches do because he's got all those 4 and 5 star players. But if Kirk Cignati, for example, had Penn State's roster, Indiana would probably win the whole thing. And I do think Indiana has a chance in this game because they did beat Oregon, who is loaded with 4 and 5 star players, and also has one of the best coaches. But Oregon certainly doesn't seem to be as good of a team as Ohio State is. And for Indiana to have a chance, I do think their defensive line is going to have a huge game because I think their secondary is going to struggle in this one because no matter how good your secondary is, you can't win one-on-ones with Jeremiah Smith. And I do think, though, that this game will be a lot closer than when they played last year. And I think Indiana can slow down Ohio State's run game some, but I still think Ohio State's going to run for around 150 in this game because they just faced an elite run defense against Michigan and they still ran for 186. And Ohio State will by far be the best offense Indiana's faced, and Indiana will by far be the best offense that Ohio State has faced. And I actually think Indiana will be able to score a decent amount in this game. I think they'll be able to have some balance offensively too. I think they'll throw for over 200 in this game, and I think they'll be able to run for around 150. But I still have to give Ohio State the win. 34-31. So now Alabama versus Georgia. So Alabama has to win this game to get in the college football playoff, most likely. But Georgia, they can lose this game and they're for sure still going to go to the college football playoff. But I'm still not sure how Georgia got into the SEC championship. It seems like it still should have been Texas A&M and Alabama because I know Alabama got in because they have the same conference record as Georgia and they beat Georgia. But Texas A&M is still ranked higher than Alabama and hasn't played either Alabama or Georgia. But Alabama and Georgia, I think, is going to be another close game. It's probably going to go down to the end. But Alabama does have the quarterback advantage in this game. Ty Simpson has thrown for 3,056 yards and completed 65.8% of his passes and averages 7.9 yards per throw and has a great 25-4 touchdown to interception ratio. And I think he's going to give this Georgia secondary a lot of problems again. And with Alabama's secondary being a lot better than Georgia's, I think Alabama is going to have a big advantage throwing the football in this game. But Gunnar Stockton, for the most part, has played well this season. He's got great accuracy, completing 70.2% of his passes. But he played his worst game of the season last week against Georgia Tech. He played awful. He only completed 52.4% of his throws and only threw for 70 yards and only averaged 3.3 yards per throw. He did throw a touchdown pass, but then he also threw an interception. And if Stockton plays like that against Alabama, Alabama will for sure win because while Alabama's offense hasn't been amazing, and Georgia's defense is really good. Georgia's not holding Alabama under 20 points. And if Stockton plays like he did against Georgia Tech, Georgia won't even score 20 points. And I actually thought Alabama's offense played pretty well against Auburn because while 27 points isn't amazing, Auburn has only given up more than 24 points at one other time this season. Now, Stockton is a lot more of a dual threat quarterback than Simpson is. Stockton, he's not near as much of a dual threat as Haynes King at Georgia Tech, but he does have 403 yards rushing and 8 rushing touchdowns on 103 carries and is averaging 3.9 yards per run. His legs are a big part of the Georgia offense. And I think Stockton will play better in this game than he did against Georgia Tech. And while Simpson is not a complete statue like Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, it's not like Georgia's coaching staff will be thinking, how do we stop Ty Simpson's legs? And then at wide receiver, Alabama is better than Georgia is. And I don't know what's going on though with Ryan Williams. He played most of the snaps against Auburn, but the ball was never even thrown to him one time. And Kalen DeBoer didn't give any explanation really as to why, but they're going to need him involved in this game. And for Georgia at wide receiver, it's really Zachariah Branch and everyone else because Colby Young, who was their second best wide receiver, broke a bone against Ole Miss and is most likely done for the season. But Branch has 68 catches, and the second most besides Colby Young is only 17 catches on the team. And then Branch has 691 yards, and besides Colby Young, this next most is under 300 yards. And Georgia supposedly has all this talent at tight end, but their tight ends, but none of them have hardly any catches or yards. They're mainly just being used for run blocking. And Alabama does have a good tight end, Cuevas, who did miss the Auburn game, though. And I don't know if he's going to play in this game or not. My guess would be that he will at least try to play. But Georgia has been a much better running team than Alabama has, and they've been a lot better at stopping the run. I think they will have some success running the football in this game. They ran all over Georgia Tech in the first half of that game, but for the first time all season, Alabama against Auburn was able to run well. They ran for 158 yards. And that's a good sign for them going into the Georgia game because Auburn has a great run defense like Georgia does. But a big part of that was Jam Miller, who ran for 83 yards on 15 carries. And he got hurt, and I saw he's questionable to play in this game. But Alabama's offensive line was a big part of that too. For the first time all season, that they were actually able to create room for the running backs to run. But both of these teams have gotten a lot better at pressuring the quarterback since when they played the first time. But one of Alabama's great pass rushers, LT Overton, I saw is not going to play in this game. But Yonze Pierre, who is their best pass rusher, has really come on since they played at Georgia. The first time, and at Georgia, they don't really have a elite pass rusher like Alabama does, and Alabama it does have the overall better defense than Georgia does. Alabama hasn't given up more than 24 points to a team all season. And I know you may be thinking that it's hard to beat a team twice, but that actually really isn't true. When two teams have played twice in a season, most of the time the team that won first usually wins again. And I think that's what happens in this game. I've got Alabama 27, Georgia 24. So that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.